Well, good morning there, YouTube. It's Petey Two Finger here. I'm on 3 hours of sleep. Every once in a while, I get to a point of realization where the wise choice for me to do that day is to, rather than go back to bed and sleep in, is tough it out and stay up and try to reverse my schedule a little bit. So it means a week of kind of jet lag, being cranky, but at the end of it, there's time where my wife and I are on more of the same schedule because she works. I injured my back. I have herniated discs and I live in chronic pain. So oftentimes, if I wake up early, it's tough for me to go back to bed simply from my back pain. So anyway, I'm up. I got a cup of coffee coming. Look out when I drink coffee. And I had a comment from Sumeet. Sumeet Sully says, "Hey, this is really great music." Let's look at the comment together. "Hey, this is really great music. I just ordered a NUX MG300. Can you make tutorials on how you go about creating and recording such music using the NUX? Thanks." Well, Sumit Sully, I am going to do the best I can in a reduced format. Now, most importantly, there is 2 links that I'm going to include here. One is called Making Music Without a Drummer, and that you have to watch that video. That talks about there's a lot in there that's really relevant, and it explains using the computer to come up with drum tracks that sound realistic, and it's not hard to do. When you obtain this software, at that point you're able to either just go through the drum tracks that you have, because it comes with a ton of drum tracks, and let those inspire you to write pieces, or you can write a piece yourself and go through and find beats that will work in it and assemble them, because it's pretty easy to do. This drum software is very flexible, and they include so many MIDI files and MIDI files that work together seamlessly, as long as they're within the same tempo. So that's very relevant. Now, the other video that I would recommend you watch is called Tour. Tour is a pretty in-depth video where I walk around and show every piece of equipment that I used on the album. Now, the main ingredients, like when I started, I was doing professional pedal demos. People would mail me a pedal, and I would write a piece of music featuring that pedal exclusively and put that piece of music together, and that would serve as a commercial for the pedal. I would usually find an old, like, black and white horror movie, edit that up, and that would be what would play on the screen instead of a shot of my midsection of me sitting on an amp playing a Les Paul, because that always really bothered me, was guys playing Zeppelin riffs sitting on the amp for pedal demo, because I don't do that. I'm the type of guitar player who I enjoy writing my own music, is what I really enjoy doing. So for me, inspiration, that comes out of these tones. Like you said, you purchased this device, so what you need to do is get familiar with how to operate it. And by operate it, I mean program it. And it's so easy. This thing, you spend 10 minutes with it reading the manual, and you're going to be a wizard. You're going to be just as good as I am at programming these patches, because NUX designed it really smart. I have to my, just off camera here, I have it's actually, there it is, a Zoom MG G10N, and that I can program that. The difference between the NUX and the Zoom is the Zoom has 126 models. There's a lot in there, and it was only $50. That's a really good multi-effector. Most of the stuff that you hear on this channel, I do live music with a duo with my wife, and I write a real lot of music. And the way I'm able to do that is I keep this guitar here, and we live in an apartment, but I have a mini amp set up, or headphones will work, but I'll pick this guy up and pluck around on it and typically come up with something. Now, one surefire way that I'm going to come up with something is turn that drum machine software on. If you get beats going, the beats just naturally tend to pull little melodies and riffs out of me. And once you're at that point and you've got the riff, it's got something like that. That's where the hard part comes, and that's coming up with the second part to go along with it. And that would be it. And then in working with that and playing some more, I can come up with a bridge. Although that was a horrible example. Got sharp elbow pain this morning. So you've got it written, and then you go and open up the drum software, and you'll start with a 4 count. Now, a lot of times what I'll do, rather than grab a MIDI controller and plug MIDI in, I will find an existing drum track that has like some cymbals going in it, and then I'll go into the note edit view and use this and manually delete everything else. I'll click a note, right click on a note that's not the cymbal, and then there'll be pops up with a window, and it'll go down to select all of the notes on this position. So let's say it's a C2. All the C2 position notes will turn yellow. They'll be all activated. And I just hit my delete key. And I go through that and do that for all the notes on that part except for the cymbals. And then let's say it's 8 long and it's 4 long and I want it to be 8. Well, I'll drag it out and make it twice as long as I need to be and put that at the beginning of the song. So then I have it for clacking the sticks together. Actually 8. I like to have 8. And as the process of the recording goes, that may get muted, like when you're done recording, or let's say you're working in the middle. At a certain point, that may get muted, but learning how to edit in the drum software and learning how to edit in your DAW, your digital audio workstation, that's the first thing. So you need to get a copy of Reaper. That's the one that most of the guitar players are using, and I use it. I use it for construction of all my drums. But when I go to record the audio, I've got an older computer and I use a DAW, which is called Adobe Audition 3.01. Now that's the DAW that I really like using. They're all the same, but different. Meaning you'll get the same results. The DAW is that's the software that you use to record the audio. And the benefit with choosing Reaper is, number one, it's free, and number two, if you get hung up and you don't know what you're doing, there's going to be plenty of information out there on how to get past that. Okay, so when on the day comes and I've got my drum track, because typically that'll be its own day. The writing the song is one day, and again, what I left out is using this webcam when I'm jamming, just goofing around on the guitar, and I get an idea. I run the webcam and I record it, and I'll call it stupid song idea in A, like what I just played today. And I put that in a folder called song ideas, and you collect these. Then when you have enough for an album, when you have like 30 or 40 of them, that's enough for an album. You'll find that you'll go through and a good percentage of that will be garbage. That's how it works for me. And then the next step is making a drum track, which you have your 4 count, and then you'll put your whatever drums that inspired you to play that original piece or whatever fits with it for the B part. And then you can look, usually they'll have a beat and they'll change it. They'll have the drummer play it one way and then maybe he'll switch to the ride cymbal. And so I'll use that. The first section where he's hitting the crash will be for the first verse, and the first chorus I'll change over to the ride, and there'll be a fill. So you work with your drum machine software to put that together and then print that as an audio track. Print that as a master track and put it in a file. And so then when it comes to the recording of the song, whatever messy garbage you had, confusing stuff, is printed down to one track that's been mastered and affected nice. Like by mastering, I mean I'll run a nice equalizer plug-in and adjust that to make the drums sound right and natural. And I will run, sometimes I even reverb the drums. That's the thing about reverb on the drums. You tend to always regret that. It's better to leave them clean and do it later, or just put a little mastering reverb on the whole mix. Because that a number one mistake of the noob, the guy that's new to recording, is too much reverb on all your mixes. So when you've got your drums done, you print them to one track, and then that's the next day. You go in, because the drums are going to take us some time. And then it's time to record. And this is where you're going to take your NUX and plug a cable out of it and go direct into an audio interface. Or if you have any other outboard equipment that you really love, I recommend going direct in. Like I have a set of tube preamps, and I put those tube preamps in front of the computer. I have an interface. Now you're probably going to use your NUX MG300 for recording. So, like there's 2 ways of doing it. You can go into a interface with the regular 1/4-inch guitar cables like you plug in your amp, plug that into the tube preamp, basically a stereo splitter, stereo cable coming out of the NUX into two stereo tube preamp, and then 2 cables going into the actual interface. In my case, it's a FireWire cable. You will probably just use the NUX as a interface. So you have your USB cable going into the computer, and that will automatically load up the recording driver in your Reaper software, or you'll have to set that up. You'll have to go into your preferences and audio settings and assign it. And there's videos on that. You have to adjust something, which is a buffer, depending on how fast and how much RAM your computer has. You can turn it down lower and lower. So basically what you do is when you install it, you turn it all the way down so there's the least amount of lag. And if it starts clicking and popping, then you need to move it over a little slower and make up that buffer, what's called a buffer, larger. But that's something you'll have to do with setting up. That is another video. You could take a look at that and watch, and which is why I recommend you get Reaper as your DAW. A Cakewalk is another one that's free. You can choose. You can try Cakewalk. But setting it up, it's really not that big of a deal. If you've worked with computers before, you'll be able to figure it out. And once that's set up, you can drag your drum track in as track 1. It'll have that 4 count, and then you're going to put headphones on, and you're going to monitor. Even if you have a fancy headphone amp, you've got to monitor out of that NUX. Okay, meaning you can't have it set up where the input going to the computer is the NUX and your output is your computer sound card. It has to be the same device for this recording to work properly. So that's why I say you'll be plugging your headphones into the NUX to monitor everything. Like you haven't recorded any guitar yet or used the NUX, but you've got it plugged in USB. The DAW is open. The NUX is assigned as the audio device. You drop your drum track in and hit play on it with the space bar, and you're going to hear the drums coming out of the NUX. And then it's time to go ahead and start recording your tracks. And like I said, I've got tube preamps, and you think, my recordings are never going to sound as good as Petey's because I don't have that tube preamp. That's just not the case. I did so many recordings without those tube preamps. That does is it adds a colorization or a flavor, but it's not a big deal. When you multi-track your guitars, what I typically tend to do, like with your bass track, you want to do everything at the same level. Like look at where you're metering. Look at how loud it is on your meter. And when you're finished, you can always adjust that. You can compress it, you EQ it, and that affects the peaks. You're going to want to tame some of the peaks by compression. And any DAW will come with plugins. That's a whole nother can of worms, downloading your own plugins. But the secret to having it mix itself is always doing it the same way. Always having your guitars meter out at like minus 9 dB. And as you go, like when you start out, you may have to adjust the drums. Like maybe your drums are a little quiet. You'll have to crank those drums so you can hear it, as opposed to your guitar what's coming in. And that's a signal that, hey, maybe your guitar is too loud. So you want to kind of have everything balanced as you go. You do your guitar tracks. I do my guitar tracks first. Then I do the bass. It depends on how you want to work. And then I go over and do keys. The keys, I have another computer with the keyboard software on it. And I run what's called a SPDIF connector in between the two. It's a digital connection, so it uses a double insulated coaxial cable to carry the right and left channel over a single coax cable, like an RCA cable. And I have a coax input on my interface. So again, you can do all the keyboards on your same computer you're recording on, and that keeps it all in the digital domain. And then when you're done and you mix it, that's all just playing it by ear. And you can't do it all on headphones. You got to have some speakers that you use. The secret with mixing is you do it on a few different sets of speakers. You do it on some bookshelf speakers are good. They say studio monitors. I just got my first pair. I dropped Semantical Nightmare, and then I got these expensive studio monitors. They're like $1,500 or $800. Yeah, $800 monitors I got, and I remixed it. So there's two versions of that. One came out in February, one came out in March. So you can listen to the other version and hear the difference of, hey, it didn't affect me that much. Now, I did add a bunch of tracks. I went back and added some keyboard, which is called Mellotron, which is a specific type of, like a rudimentary sampler that has a real specific classic rock sound. So I used that quite a bit on this album. And that's why they're called the mellow mixes. But with the mixing, if you do it all on headphones, you're going to have some stuff is not going to be right. It's only going to sound really good on that same pair of headphones. So you need to run it through some 2.1 computer speakers. You need to run it through some bookshelf speakers. That's what I do. I do some bookshelf and then the 2.1. And if I can get it to sound about as good on all three of those. And really, with the mixing, a good thing to do is, like I said, on that first track, you'll have your drums cranked up, and then you'll have to bring them down. The more tracks you add, the more the overall decibels of the song is going to come up. So the more you add, the more you have to keep turning everything down. Okay? So when it comes time to mix, you might want to go through, you've got a rough mix, just turn everything down by 3 dB. Go in there and look at the numbers. This track is -3, this track's -4, this track's -1. Just remember, I'm -3 and turn them all down -3, because I'm telling you, mixing low is better than mixing where it's blasting. So I get it like that. I get it in the pocket. And then when I print my mix, when I really like what I'm hearing and I print the mix, there's a step called mastering. And that's where if you're doing a bunch of songs, you want them all to sound the same with the same level of bass and treble. And the instruments are balanced the same. And that's where that thing where I talked about doing everything the same, tracking. When you're recording your guitars, you do them all about the same volume level, depending on what the piece is. Okay? So at that point, I use what's called Ozone 5. And it's really old. I got my copy for free, and it has a... It's a lot of stuff, the mastering. It's a lot. There's 2 equalizers in it, one beginning, one at the end. Then there's a mastering reverb, which I do use. There's a dynamics processor, like a compressor. There's like a limiter. There's a enhancer. There's a stereo spreader to make the stereo seem larger. So I start with presets on that, and then I go through. There'll be a preset for the master that will change everything. And then I go through each device and I open that up on that preset, and I go through that device's presets and find the one that I like the best. That's what I do, and then I'll save that as a preset. And then just use that on every song. And I'll adjust a little bit here and there on it, but that's how I do my mastering, is Ozone 5. And really, the secret to a good mix for me is in moderation. It's not getting too crazy, like turning one knob up way too much. Like, I do EQ my stuff. It is, like I print tracks with effects on them, which is something you're not supposed to do. You're supposed to record the track dry and then add the effect later, like the reverb or the delay. I don't do that. All of my effects are printed on the tracks. I do everything on the fly, and there's the really creative producers will do that. The producers that have balls and home producers. But if it's a professional situation, they never do that. They always do the effect later, so in case they go, oh, I don't like that. But I would never go, oh, I don't like that on a reverb or delay that I chose. You know what I mean? I know what I like, and if you go back, you hear how my music changed and how it got better and more dense. The secret to this album, it's really dense. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of tracking. And you mentioned, like, how do I get it to sound like this? And as the NUX MG300 as being the solution for this recording. That's not it. That's not it. I only use the NUX on high gain guitars and man, I wish I could remember. Most of the guitars that you hear are run through the Roland VG8, but VG88, excuse me. But that's not the solution either. My stuff sounded pretty much the same when I was using a Zoom, a $50 effector, because it's good. It sounds really good. You just need something that sounds good, and your advantage that you have, you're starting out with the NUX MG300, which is a really good sounding device. It's 32-bit. Which means it just sounds fantastic. So don't get hung up on needing one specific thing to get a sound. The sound is in here. It's in your hands. It's in your soul. It's going to come out in the music through your work and your repetition. So the number one piece of advice I would give to someone who's starting out is don't be fucking discouraged. Okay? You will. The first recordings you do are just experiments, and you should go into it not trying to make something like what I did, Semantical Nightmare, which is this whole sweeping piece of impressive, good sounding music. You need to just put some shit down. My first recordings were parodies, where I was there was a bully in the neighborhood, and I could impersonate his very unusual voice, and so I came up with a country music piece and mocked the guy. And I continued to make those styles of recordings. There was like 3 or 4 people that I did songs for like that. People that I just couldn't stand. And I would do those songs. And that was enabled me to go through the process of learning multi-track recording without sticking my neck out on the line. And I could play it for other people. I go, hey, check this out. And I had a Walkman. I would put my headphones on them on the school bus. And they would be wetting their pants, crying, tears coming out of their eyes, laughing, so they couldn't stop laughing so hard at this stuff. And that when you get a reaction like that on your first song, that's like, that is encouraging for me to do more. Because I had another experience where I was playing trumpet when I was younger, and I really hated playing trumpet. I was breaking out in cold sores around my lips, and it was so unbelievably painful, and I was being forced to do it against my will, and I had a piece I was supposed to learn for the church, and I went up there and I blew it in the church, and I was I was like, looked like Louis Armstrong. I was sweating, a little white kid, just pouring sweat. And it wasn't because I was doing heroin. I was embarrassed. It was horrible. And after the thing, people came up, oh, you did a good job. And I'm thinking, lady, don't lie, especially in church. But I got that feeling of bombing. Early on, I bombed. And then later, I really learned a piece and did it at a competition, and I got a medal, which I still have, and it's one of my, sacred things. I got a trophy and I got a medal that I'm proud of. But my point is that finding things you can do that you'll be able to maybe play for your cousin or your friend, where you're not really seriously putting yourself out there and singing so much maybe, but just demonstrating the fact that you're learning recording. And you got to understand this is going to take a while for you to get good at it. And the only way that you get good is by doing it more. You have to learn from experience, because you're not going to know what you're fucking doing right away. And that's why those first 3 or 4 recordings you shouldn't play for anybody. Wait till you've got a handle on it, and then stick your neck out and play it for that person that you think might give you some positive feedback. So that's the best advice I could give you. Go back and watch the tour, and I can't necessarily, like what I did today. This is something like what is that, Fiverr or Skillshare? This is like something you should be paying me like $30 for this video. So I can't help you any further. This is our end of our road. If you come back and you maybe have some questions, maybe I'll be able to help you out a little bit. But as far as me making personalized videos off of responses, I do it from time to time, but there's a limit to what I can do to help you, because you need to understand the only way that I got good at this was fucking recording over and over. And that's where either your teeth are cut for this job to be a musician or not. Okay? Because if not, it's a lot of work to get to where I am. That represents probably my 13th or 14th album, which you heard, Semantic Nightmare. And it's like giving birth to a kid. I mean, the process starts in around Thanksgiving, and it's done February 1st. And those last 3 weeks, that's like the hard labor when I'm recording the tracks. But if you the number one thing with that is comfort. I really struggled the past few years with the right chair. You need a certain kind of chair for recording. And I got a office chair that doesn't have the arms on it, so the guitar fits in there nice. We found one at a resale store, but there was an African-American lady there buying it. I had went and looked at it, and then I went to get my wife, and when I came back, she was there. And I said, "Oh, you're getting that?" And she goes, "Why did you want it?" And I said, "Well, it's okay. I'll find another one at another Goodwill." And she said, "Well, I said to my wife, I said, if we bought this, I would pull the arms off because there was arms. I said, I'm sure those arms come off. We would just pull the arms off, and then that's the type of chair I want." Because my wife actually works at another one of those resale stores, and I was telling her in case she saw one, she could just grab it for me. And this lady says, "Oh, I've got one that doesn't have the arms. Would you want it?" And I was like, "Lady, are you kidding me? Where do you live?" She's like, "I live right down the street." So we went and grabbed it and brought it home, and it was super heavy. Like a really nice old, it was made in like 1980. So I looked it up, and it was a $300 chair in 1980. So this chair is made for people to sit on it for 8 hours, okay? And I got to tell you, that for me, because of my horrible back pain, sitting on something that's going to make you start squirming around and hurting, like having a proper length headphone extension cord. Because I track when I'm recording, I use headphones. When I'm mixing, I use the speakers. But stuff like that. And don't be afraid to have anything written in stone as far as your gear and your setup goes. That should always be in a state of flux. Should always be upgrading, or for me. And I'm just talking about little stuff like the adapters or the power supply or the lighting. All that stuff is always changing and improving. Thinking that you're going to order a bunch of stuff and get a bunch of expensive stuff, that's not the way to go for me. I like finding it all used at resale stores, like that stuff that has character. That's the stuff that really works well for me. So anyway, Sumeet, I hope that was helpful for you. I hope you'll stick around and participate in the comment section here. I love to pick up new people in this little community we have here. There's some really interesting people here. If you haven't checked out my buddy's channel, Heavy Metal ATC, he's building a guitar out of a 4,000-year-old dinosaur turd. So you should check him out. Actually, I'm kidding about that. Anyway, Sumeet, best of luck with your music. If you ever want to bounce a mix off me, I'll listen to your mix and give you advice on what it sounds like on my end, which is fucking priceless advice. So stick around, leave a comment on my video from time to time. We can become friends, and maybe I can help you out further down the road. Take care of yourself and best of luck, buddy.